Such sights to show you.
Hell yeah.
Every Wednesday at 6:30 Central, 7:30 on the East Coast, or just, in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'm Razor. I'm your host for the Horror Syndicate Discourse, and this is our 7 millionth episode. Well, at least it feels like it. But we're not running out of things to talk about. There's tons of stuff. We've barely scratched the surface of horror over the last 4 seasons. Wow, man. I had black hair when we began on my beard. Anyway, tonight we are talking about a film, an A24 film. So if you are one of those people who just hate everything A24 does, just leave. We've got a movie called Green Room, which took me a long time to see. And when I saw it, I was like highly impressed. And like, why did I sleep on this for so long? It's one of the most tense movies I think I've seen in a long time. It's up there, at least. So I will bring forth our panel, and we'll get into it. First, I'm going to bring in Seth because Seth just saw it. I want you to. Did you do a synopsis thing like you were talking
about? No, not quite. I mean, I can cover that, but
okay. How you doing today?
I am doing okay.
Somebody got a haircut?
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
It looks great this week. I just shaved my head, so anyway, we'll do that once we get Nathan Thomas, millionaire, in here. And here he is, Nathan Thomas, millionaire. What's up? Anybody ever call you that before? Millionaire?
I think so, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the haircut's growing really nice, Seth.
There was one time I got my haircut when I had hair. I got my haircut at work, and we were having a meeting, and my boss goes, "Oh, Ray, you got a haircut?" I was like, "No, I didn't." It was the day after, of course, and she's like, "It looks like your hair's short." I was like, "I just pulled my goatee, and it shortened everything." Anyway, dumb stories from Ray today. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
This is a movie that you've kind of been on us to watch for a while now.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked. I mean, I don't know if Jared saw it or not, but I'm kind of shocked that it went past the radars because I don't know.
It's weird because I own it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a fucking great movie. And I mean, there are movies that come out where you hear a lot of buzz and you never get around to it. But yeah. I had rented Blue Ruin when it came out, which is the film Jeremy Saulnier made before this one, and I was just blown away. I love revenge films; it's like my favorite subgenre, and it's one of the very best. It's because it's handled in a very realistic way, as Green Room is, and. So, and I remember several times hearing Robert Englund talk about Blue Ruin. I was actually at Horror Hound and having a table, and he was talking to a fan about it. As the guy's getting his autograph, Robert's just going on about Blue Ruin. It's the perfect revenge film. But yeah, I was a big fan of Blue Ruin, and so I was very much anticipating this movie because it looked great. The story, the plot sounded great. I think they're both very good. They complement each other, these two films. They'd be a great double feature. Yeah. So you guys need to check out Blue Ruin.
Yeah, it's streaming on everything. Amazon, Tubi, YouTube for free, Vudu for free, Plex, Freevee, whatever that is.
I mean,
So,
yeah, real quick on that one, just because we're going to get into Green Room. Blue Ruin is about this guy, Macon Blair, who's in Green Room, who is living in his car. And he's been living homeless in his car for a couple of years. And the reason is because he kind of had a mental breakdown because his parents were murdered. And this cop shows up at his car, knocks on the window, says, "You're not in trouble. There's nothing wrong. But the man who murdered your family is getting released from prison." And we thought, we wanted you to know it before someone else, or, they want to warn him.
Yeah.
So he decides that he's going to kill the guy. But he's not like, he's just a normal, average Joe kind of guy. He's not a violent person, a pacifist type person. But this totally ruined his life, his parents' death. And, he's living on the streets, grow beard, all that. He just looks like, he's just a lost person, and he thinks maybe he's his only thing to do in life is to get back at this guy. This is a really, and because it's forced in such a way, most of these movies are like, oh, this guy's an ex-CIA agent or an ex-French guy or an ex-Marine, and it's like to get somebody who's just like anybody off the street who decides to do this, and it's it's sloppy. It's also got Buzz in it from Home Alone. He's like
and Jan from the Brady Bunch.
Jan from the Brady Bunch.
Eve Plum.
Yeah,
how about that?
Eve plays a pretty dark character, and Buzz is kind of like his. I think he's kind of a survivalist that he went to school with. So like they were childhood friends.
I kind of like the idea of Eve Plum playing a dark character. This has been added to my list.
I think she's the sister of the man that killed his family.
Oh. Yeah. Well, don't give away too much.
I'm not going to give you more, but yeah.
I know Seth put it on his radar, his watch list, our 2 watch lists, and it'll be on mine too now that it's streaming everywhere. So, with this, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I'm like, I can't go back to sleep. What am I going to do? And I was looking at HBO Max. I was like, oh, there's Green Room. That's why I watched that, and I was like, holy shit! And I watched 2 subspecies movies right after that, so that was worth it. But anyway, Seth, tell the viewers what this movie's about. Give it a little synopsis, if you will.
Okay, so yeah,
You sound beautiful, by the way. Go ahead.
There's this nomadic punk rock band that lives for the show. They're living off the grid. They take whatever gig they can do. They have no social media presence, which kind of factors into the dilemma that they have later. And they take a gig at a alt-right club, which just happens to be a front for drug dealers, led by Captain Picard.
I think we can say neo-Nazi. I think that because that's what they are, right?
Okay. Yeah. Neo-Nazi. Yep.
We're describing the movie. So.
Yeah. And but it's a front for the drug operation led by Captain Picard, basically while they're playing at the show, after they're done with their set, young Kyle Reese stumbles across a murder while trying to get maybe Funke's phone.
Funke.
I like that.
Maybe.
That's all I heard was maybe. Yeah. I love her, by the way.
I do. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. She's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
And so because he stumbled across the murder and he was able to get through to 911, basically the neo-Nazis trapped them inside the green room, and they have to kind of fight their way out. And the thing with this is that the neo-Nazis are sort of like they're a well-oiled machine, because Captain Picard is very very tactical, and he has a very very specific set of rules of how he wants everything to go down, because he's thinking of how the police are going to assess the whole situation. So basically, he tells his guys, no guns. They sick dogs on them. They use blades. Tell them not to cut to the bone. But yeah, so basically, young Kyle Reese, maybe Funke, and their band members, as well as the chick he co-starred with in the Fright Night remake, they have to try to fight their way out, and it's
Come on, give her a name. Come on.
Lovely Imogen Poots.
Yes.
Amy. Amy from Fright Night. I'll call her that.
Yeah.
So, and it's very brutal.
It is, man. It's fucking intense.
Yeah.
Like really intense. And Seth didn't give away the entire plot, but there will be spoilers from here on out. For anybody who watches this or is watching, it's definitely worth a watch. I will say that. So Seth pretty much just covered the story, but there's more to it, of course. And we've got I made him green. You like that?
Right.
Nate's very enthused.
Yeah, green.
Green. Well, it's green room.
Yeah, green room.
Yeah. So anyway,
and they shot in Oregon, which was very green.
Well, yeah, those images that you sent me for your autopsy looks almost like the filter I used. Like just this one and this one here, which by the way, that's one of my favorite shots for some reason.
I love that shot right there.
Yeah. When I was watching the first time, I was like, I love that part. I love that for some reason. Takes me back. So surprised me. First of all, I want to talk about the cast before we start getting deeper into the story, because obviously we've got Robert Patrick Patrick Stewart. Robert Patrick would have fit right in though, wouldn't he have?
Yeah, he would have.
But Patrick, I can't think of another movie that I've seen him play a darker character in this, and my God, he was calculating, like Seth said.
I can't think of one. I mean, he did a lot of films way before he was Picard.
Yeah,
I mean, wasn't he in Excalibur, and there's a few others. Seems like I just saw him in something not too long ago, but I'm fucking blanking on it.
Wasn't
very young.
There was something in like the 90s or early 2000s, like Mastermind or something like that. I think he was a villain in that.
Did you ever see the movie where he's living he won't leave his house, but he's like an assassin or something like that? Is that something, or did I make that up?
I don't know.
Sounds like I made it up. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think the cast is strong. We'll look it up, by the way. I think the cast is strong. I love Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, what a fucking loss that guy was.
I know.
Man. Like,
was this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, was this his last movie?
I don't think so.
I think Star Trek Beyond or whatever.
Yeah, he got into all that stuff because this came out 2015.
15. Yeah.
He's been. When he died, like
2016.
All right, so
the last one that was released though was Star Trek. I don't know which one he filmed first, because a movie like this probably didn't take as long as Star Trek. Oh, he played King Richard I in Robin Hood Men in Tights. How about that?
Was he in the bar in American Werewolf in London?
He's in a movie called The Gunman as Loomis.
I don't remember.
No, it doesn't say.
I saw him in something recently. I'm just
Excalibur, Dune. He was in Dune.
Yeah, he was in Dune.
Life Force. Yes, I forgot about that. Lady J. God. LA Story. Is that the Steve Martin movie? Because that movie's hilarious. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie. But anyway. So yeah, and then we've talked about Imogen Poots before on the 28 Weeks Later episode, and I love her.
Yeah.
So yeah, and seeing her in this, like when I watched the trailer again before I saw the movie, and the trailer doesn't do it any justice, and for me it almost gave me the wrong idea of what the movie was about. You know, I mean, like the overall premise, you know, they're stuck in the green room, have to fight their way out. That, but it also looked like Imogen Poots' character was a part of their group and everything. I didn't know it was a whole different thing, and I had no idea they were, you know, skinheads and whatever else. That was like, and then they played that song, like, like, dude.
I love that. Yeah, they're like, Yelchin's like, I got an idea. It's stupid, or I don't know. I got an idea, and then he's like wanting to back out. She's like, "Don't back out now. This is your idea. I'll tell him you're a Jew."
Yeah, and they got lucky, I think, with that. They like they were the crowd was reacting, but you know,
yeah, playing Dead Kennedy's Nazi punks. Fuck
Mhm.
off. It's a bunch of Nazis. It's pretty great.
I thought that was great. I had a good laugh at that, but yeah, I like all the bandmates. They were fun. The guy that was interviewing them that they crashed. It was such a weird like lifestyle, like just to start it off, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, and that guy you were talking about,
Macon Blair, yeah.
Yeah,
Macon's him and Jeremy grew up together in Virginia. Both around the same age. Jeremy's actually like exactly 1 month younger than I am. He's born on June 10th, 1976. I'm May 10th in 76. And they were high school buddies. They've known each other forever, and they've always worked on stuff together. And Macon, I brought this up. I don't think you guys saw Murder Party either. That was
that's the first of the trilogy.
movie. Yeah, and that Macon stars in that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the star of it. But he's got a big part in it. And then they did Blue Ruin, which he's a star of, and then they did Green Room, and then his next one that Jeffrey, oh god, what's his name? The guy that played Commissioner Gordon recently, Jeffrey Lewis, is it?
Yeah,
Jeffrey Lewis. I forget the name of the movie, but Macon wrote the screenplay for that one. It's based on a novel. So Macon's a really talented dude too. But they're kind of a team. But he had to actually audition for this movie. They didn't think, like, Jeremy wasn't going to cast him because he didn't think Macon would play a good skinhead.
Jeffrey Wright, that's it.
Sorry,
yeah, because I was like, huh.
They didn't think Macon would play. Jeremy didn't think of Macon as playing a Nazi or neo-Nazi skinhead, and so
he was one of the best characters in the movie. Honestly.
He like shaved he cut his hair short and like put on Nazi tattoos that he got off like Amazon or something, and went and auditioned behind his back and got the part. So he wasn't handed that part. He earned his part.
Which is, I mean, he was good.
Really good at it, yeah.
And that's one of the things I was going to mention about the casting is like the movie doesn't. You never feel like it follows one character. You know, it's not. This is like when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, an Anton Yelchin film, okay. But it never felt like it was his movie. He didn't even feel like he was like the lead guy in the band, which was kind of refreshing. And then, you know, Patrick Stewart was thrown in there as well. And again, you know, he is the leader of the group and the owner of that place and everything. But like it didn't focus on anybody too long, and it gave everybody a chance to kind of do their thing, which I liked.
I think it's good to not have, for the band, not to have the leader, because they're the unorganized ones.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Stewart is the obvious one that everyone's afraid of. They're all about efficiency and, like you said, by the rules. It's all efficiency. Even one of my favorite moments is when all this shit's going on, and he walks through that hall and goes, "That's a fire hazard." Like he's still talking about his job as a manager of this.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't see that in other movies. I love that. I just love that little detail. Go, this is a fire hazard, and just keeps moving. It's not stopped. It's like a big deal, but it's like he's still business. It's still all about everything's in order. Tell me everything that's happening, and I'm going to resolve this and fix this and everything. And you know, the whole theme of the paintball thing, which we'll get into, of efficiency and structure and strategy and everything. Seth had mentioned he's a strategist. This is a war film in many ways. This is how Jeremy looked at it. And the Nazis are the army that are disciplined and structured and should be winning.
Almost like the Revolutionary War, if you think about it, because the band and everything are doing the more guerrilla combat, taking whatever they can get and fighting back, which is really fucking cool, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about the cast before we move on, Seth? Or Nate?
Go ahead. I got nothing else for cast. I mean, I in my segment, I am going to talk about the characters because it's part of my breakdown on that, but nothing in particular right now.
I think they're all good, and like you said, there was enough focus on all of them. It was definitely more of an ensemble movie, and it wasn't like one person was the full lead. Like I kind of expected Anton because I know who he is. Yeah, he just seemed like the bigger actor out of everyone in that group.
He's the passive one.
But yeah, and then he didn't. Like he was out of commission for a little bit while the more tougher band member was kind of taking charge a little bit.
Yeah, he kept locking that guy in that wrestling move. But yeah, when that all happened through the door, like I didn't. When I was like, was that Anton that happened to? Because I couldn't tell. Like it was there was a scuffle going on, and when he kind of falls back, he's holding his own. I was like, oh shit.
When you're
the lead character,
Yeah, when your star gets that mutilated, it takes away your safety net of shit. Because like there was a lot of that in the torture porn era of film that was shocking. Like I think it was in the House of Wax remake. The main girl gets her fingers chopped off at one point. You're like,
yeah, she does.
Fuck, dude, like. You don't see that in movies. You're just like, oh, I got a little scar, I got a little cut, or but she got her fucking fingers cut off. And then I remember the one that was the biggest shocker was in Wolf Creek, where the girl gets stabbed in the spine. Like you think she's the lead character, and she's the first one. As soon as she gets stabbed in the spine, like you're just a head on a stick thing. I was like, holy shit! Ain't she the final girl? Like, she's just been paralyzed.
I need to put that on the schedule because I need to watch that again.
Yeah, and so when you see Anton Yelchin's arm, and there was a great alternative fan poster of just an arm chopped up like meat for Green Room that's cool. Out there. But yeah, that alarms you to and they do elect him to speak to Patrick Stewart through the door, which is just a great scene, and he has there's a really great delivery I want to mention, but like I think they choose him because he's the two that really have the most level head are Maybe and Anton, right? And she's kind of the business manager part. I think she handles the money. She probably handles all the communications, the bookings with people. Anton, I think the thing is, Anton's probably the most. If you're going to have someone talk your way out of something, it would be one of those two. But because he's male and this is a male world, they're talking to an alpha male.
Right.
They probably had Anton go up. That's why they kind of looked at him, because the other guy is hot-headed.
Yeah.
And the singer's a dipshit.
Yeah.
So I'll get into that in my breakdown, but he's the rational person who's probably best to handle that particular situation. That's why I think she looks at him like, he's like, shit. But he has like there's one of my favorite lines is when he's talking to them. They go, the cops have come and they've already left. He goes, well, that's what concerns us, man. Like, it's like this, like his delivery was so real. And his performance is so believable. Even like when he gets cut and he's crying about the pain and all that, it's so believable. It's like, you can tell he's terrified. He's not in control.
No, he's a hell of an actor, man.
Yeah.
I also like his delivery of, I mean, it's very small in comparison, but when Patrick Stewart says, for all I know is that, there's a band that's locked up in here with an unregistered gun and they got a hostage, and he's like, oh, come on. I just love the way that like, that's how I would react. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
come
like,
on.
I can't win here, they're gonna make this. They're gonna get away with this. Is what that line is like. We're fucked, and they're gonna pin this all on us, and they're gonna get away with our murders. And like say, oh come on, like have no leverage here at all.
Right, and not to mention too, because they have no social media presence, because they are nomadic and they live on the road, it makes their situation all that more dire because no one's going to be looking for them.
They'd have been dead already if it hadn't been for Tad's character, who knows where they are. I guess is he a DJ or a reporter? I mean, he interviews them, but I don't know. Like, he's on the book. So it wasn't clear on what he does, but I guess since he got up early, maybe he's an early morning DJ or something. I don't know.
Something, yeah. I was wondering what he was, and he the interview guy or whatever.
Yeah. But then again, he may not be. I don't know. But
what was setting them up?
He wasn't setting them up. This was not supposed to. None of this was supposed to happen. All this happens because of the couple who were going to run away together.
Right.
And so there was no setup. It was just wrong place, wrong time thing. And but I don't think they wanted to murder anybody outside of that situation because they had to. They still had if they didn't have if Tad didn't know about them, then they probably would just killed them and buried them somewhere because no one would know they existed there or they were there. But because they have that, they had to come up with the plot, which is make it look like they were trespassing and the dogs got them and all that. And they were stealing gas from them. And so...
Yeah, after he found the gas can in the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were very efficient in covering up their tracks. I mean, that's what I love about the orders, systematic stuff of give me $600 so I can pay a true believer to stab the other one and say they stabbing. There's... They operate in such a it's such a well-oiled machine, as Seth said, and and this is these people are the monkey and the wrench thing that they have to deal with. And Macon Blair seems like his character is newly in charge, and he's doing his best to handle it, but he's also making mistakes. And there's that great moment where Patrick Stewart loses, slams, face palms him against the thing and says, "Sounds like they're smarter than you." But he immediately, he's all about being straight arrow, calm, reserved. So he immediately apologizes for losing his temper, which makes him terrifying because this guy, he's not someone who is going to rattle. He's just he's smarter than they are. It's his place. He's got an army. They're way out of their league here, and they know it.
Oh yeah, and I think that's probably why this movie it's hard to say fun because it's hard to watch at times, but you know what I mean, right? It's one of those movies you're on the edge of your seat almost as soon as they get to that place, because right away when they're getting their stuff out, they have almost an altercation with one of the one guy that was trying to run away, right?
Mark Webber, from Scott Pilgrim. That's odd. I know I've seen him in some other stuff. I like him. He's a good actor.
Yeah, and it was not really a weak spot as far as acting goes, I think. But one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about.
Well, one of the cool thing about that before we jump in is Jeremy really wanted to humanize these Nazis. And they do come out off as real people. They're not. I really hate movies where the bad guys and the henchmen are all just cookie cutter henchmen. When they're not human. That's why Dead Man's Shoes is one of my favorite revenge thriller movies because the villains in that movie were humans. They were normal. They were afraid. They had fear. The guy that they have in the room with them, the big guy, big Kevin or Jeff or whatever his name was very almost likable. He was big and large, but they didn't want to kill him. They didn't want to hurt him. They didn't want him to kill them. But there was something the way Macon responds, the way most of them respond, they're just. I mean, a lot of them are just misguided kids who have been manipulated by what happens in these cults and these racist groups is they're young lost kids who have been, they just want to earn his respect, but they're also scared normal kids who are also in over their heads. And that's risky to draw that in a movie to humanize what we all look at as evil people, and they are just people, and these characters respond like real people. Even Patrick Stewart in the end is human and fallible, and even makes odd decisions as well.
That's true.
I also liked that was he a bouncer? I don't know. Was that his
the big
role
guy?
there? Yeah,
Probably
yeah,
the bouncer.
but I liked him too, and I also liked how the way he reacted was sort of like a reflection of the sort of the leadership, I suppose, from Patrick Stewart's character. He's sticking to the calm, collected, don't do anything rash,
Yeah.
while trying to remain in charge. Because I mean, he probably could have beat up the one kid, but he was like disciplined, and he didn't really come across like it was like a sadistic thing. Like he
No.
didn't seem like he was enjoying it, but it was like, okay, this is the situation. This is the bit, he's like sort of like desensitized.
Well, it's kind of like this bouncer, like you talk about being a bouncer, like bouncers are running into guys who think they're tough all night long, but they like, and that's kind of how I got the vibe of him as he's watching them, and he realizes these kids aren't fighters or killers or bad people, and he knows like they have no idea, they don't know anything about guns, they don't know anything about any of this, and he knows that, so he's not showing fear. He's actually feeling like you kids don't know how much what's waiting for you behind that door. And I don't think he necessarily wants them to die or kill them or wants them to hurt. Like maybe we can figure this out, negotiate this, but he knows that he's not afraid because he just thinks he's just a bunch of kids who don't know what the fuck's going on and are flies in a spider net, or web. And Patrick Stewart, the Black Widow, come in to devour them.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, so I can hear my son up.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I want that. There's another line. I wrote a bunch of lines I just really love, and one of my favorite lines is when all this first happens, when the murder and they're all in there and they're in the green room and they say, "You can't keep us here," and he says, "We're not keeping you here. You're just staying."
Yeah,
I love that. Like he's like, We're not keeping you. You're just staying. Like you can't leave." I don't know. There's some really good dialogue in the movie.
Did the director write this too?
Yeah, he's a writer-director.
Okay. I can't remember his name.
Jeremy Saulnier, I think is how you say it.
Is he French?
Maybe. From Virginia. He's a Frenchman from Virginia.
He's French Virginian. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the one thing, the question I had, well, not question, is I wanted to talk to you guys about, which we always talk about, is the score and the music, really. What did you take away from this one? Because I honestly don't remember anything past the punk music.
I think the score is minimalized because he doesn't want you to be taken out of the reality of it. If you put score in a movie like this, you forget that. I mean, this movie is so real that when the moments where there would be score in a movie, he leaves it out to maintain that reality.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the only scenes in the movie that has score is maybe like the slow motion scene after they've played Nazi punks, and it's kind of like this. Everybody's dancing and they're singing and rocking out. I don't remember a whole lot more score outside of that.
Yeah, I don't either. Even after watching, like, I'm like, wait, was there a score? I don't remember. Seth,
go
ahead.
Very, very barely a score. Like Nate said, it was minimized. There was
sound design, maybe a little bit of
stereo
sound.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I mean, you can hear it at certain spots throughout, but it's not like
not meant to be noticed.
Right, exactly. It's not
Yeah.
like any other like action movie or whatever where there would be a big score during these big sequences that are happening, especially when they first leave the room.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And then, like I said, you got the needle drop stuff. Like I know one thing. He plays War Ensemble by Slayer, and he said back when him and his friends were making movies in their backyard as teenagers, like they always put War Ensemble in their movies. So it's kind of like a geek out moment to actually officially have a Slayer that song in the movie. And I know there's like some Cannibal Corpse and stuff like that in there, and of course a lot of punk covers for the band. But yeah, it's yeah, I don't. Music in a movie like this will just take you right out of the reality.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because it was definitely not very present whenever I was watching it. And it's like it. I didn't notice it, and that kind of helps with the realism of the movie in a way, because this movie did feel fairly realistic, in a lot of different ways.
there's certain movies that are just so effective when they have, when they don't have a score to certain scenes. There's sort of like it kind of brings like a rawness to the movie, especially with the way it's shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like about this is the kind of lack of score.
Yeah, it sometimes that can help. I mean, I know how scores can help a movie, but some, like that scene where they're in the like the main part, was it kind of by like the kitchen or whatever? That was, and then they get the dogs on them. Part of it felt like Jurassic Park also, but you know what I'm saying though. It was like a very intense scene, and I honestly don't remember any music at all. And again, like I actually like that though about the movie. Yeah, so there was just a few needle drops and minimal score to this movie, so it would be hard to rate the score, I guess, in this in this movie, huh?
Yeah, because the whole movie is really about as reality. Jeremy purposely does things in this movie that you don't see in other movies, like characters people who don't know how to use guns are going to lose. So every
Right.
time they have a gun, they lose. They go out and they don't know how to use it, and they get attacked by a dog or something. Like, and there's the one of the great ones is he's when the guy chokes the guy out, he's trying to choke him out and knock him out. Like we see that in movies. Yeah, go to sleep, right? And they fall asleep, and then they leave him walking there. I'm like, but that guy could get up, And he said, I'm a big MMA guy. I see people get choked out. They don't stay out. They wake up like almost immediately. Like they don't just sleep for an hour. And he goes, so when he wakes back up, that's what really happens. And so then at that point, the guy has to kill him. And you can see it on his face. He doesn't want to kill him. He's never murdered anybody before.
Right.
And the whole time when they're killing him, it's somber. There's no music. The way the character, no one's screaming, nothing. It's quiet. So it's even more disturbing because you're just seeing the guy's face, their faces, and their response. And then the way she takes that box cutter and cuts him up it's quiet. There's not a sound, and it's almost more impactful because there's nothing there for us to scream. The characters aren't screaming. There's nothing happening. It's just so matter of factly. It's seeing his torso cut open like that slowly with a box cutter. So he does these things in the movie that are how things actually happen instead of movie stuff. Mm-hmm. These characters, things don't go the way they do in movies. Like just the way death comes. Like when Reese is built up as the tough guy, and his death comes like that. He crawls through that window or whatever, and just immediately gets killed, you're like, oh shit, you know. And then Weber, when they're sneaking around, you think Weber's going to be their savior and lead them out of there, and he gets shot in the face like that. And,
yeah, that was
yeah.
that was messed up. I was like, oh shit.
And then maybe, you know, like, oh, she's our girl, you know, she goes out there and then dog gets her.
Yeah, no one was safe in this movie.
No.
Almost. Like, you know, from the get-go, like we mentioned earlier, when Anton's arm gets all jacked up, you're like, is he gonna make it? Because he was losing a lot of blood, it looked like. And there were times in the movie he's just like, the first time he started talking about paintball, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, I thought, is he losing it? You know, and
it's like the whole metaphor of the movie is just a great little bit of, well, we're just being wiped out by these Marines in a paintball match, and he just says fuck it and goes out there, and it's the elements of surprise or just confusion or like, how do we fight this? Like, you don't know how, and it's luck, and it's all that. So that's what, and they try that, and boom, a lot of them are getting picked off. It doesn't work. But like, what else can you do? There's no way they're going to outmaneuver an army.
Yeah.
So they just all have to keep charging and pray to God, and it works at the end for them, but not.
Well, yeah, because they end up at certain points they kind of pick them off one by one as they come in, and like the two true believers that go in there, the one was like, oh, he's just talking to him in there. Like, I'm like, what the? This movie has so many weird moments for me. Like I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And that's one of the things I liked about the movie. Was
anti-movie stuff.
I forgot I have this. I was gonna eat this. The Horse Syndicate Discourse brought to you by Hershey's Cookies and Cream. Anyway, Nate, you ready for your scene? Now, I want to tell you, again, everything got loaded out of order on Messenger. So I think, if I remember correctly, the first shot is in the field.
It's him sleeping. It's the first
is it him sleeping?
Yeah.
Because this one?
Yeah.
Oh, because then he wakes up and
he wakes up and looks out the window. Then there's a cornfield.
Okay, so you got the explanation and everything, right? I should be able to go off your explanation.
Okay, I'll try. You want to throw that one back up?
I will. I'm gonna play. I gotta play your intro, man.
Okay.
Love the intros. Okay.
Okay, so this scene, I try to break down a scene, and a lot of the reasons like this doesn't really have anything to do with horror, but I really like the scene. I'm really trying to talk about the filmmaking, and this
coming
scene,
from a filmmaker, by the way.
This scene, this is the very first shot of the scene of the movie, and he based this scene or this whole thing about like real stories. Jeremy used to be a singer in a hardcore band, and he had a lot of friends who were in punk bands. So this was kind of similar. He goes, I had a lot of friends wake up in cornfields or fields because they fell asleep at the wheel on tour. And he kind of wanted a Mad Max aesthetic, the kids on the road. As you said, they were off the grid. They're kind of analog versus digital. They live life in a constant wave of energy rather than a non-continuous electrical signal. The band is holding on to that form of being there in the moment. Instead, like, so much of their life is about the moment and living it. That's how art is. It's not supposed to be recorded. Like, so that's that great moment when they're in the Mexican bar and the guy's just standing there like a zombie filming them with the phone. And it's like, that's what people do now. They just sit there and look at their phone and record instead of like actually being there and listening to the band and being part of it. They're just watching it through a contraption. Like, you're there. Like, just watch it. So they hate that. I think they only have one phone. And they share
her phone,
it.
Right?
Yeah, it's her phone. And she even said, like, the guy's using it, and she's like, hey, I'm the one who pays the bills. So they just are they are like trying to hold on to, they're like old gunslingers and the West is going away and things are changing and things are becoming more
Like Red Dead
modern,
Redemption.
civil, and they're like, no, we want to be these nomadic, just living on the music plane, and you had to be there, and that's going away because everything's recorded now and everything's watched later. Everyone's like, oh, I'll record it and watch it later, or I'll watch it at home, or I'll watch it when it gets on video, or instead of going to the movie theater and experiencing a communal experience with people, oh, I'll watch it on Netflix. It's just not the same. So let's see where I'm at here. I could have picked a lot of scenes break down. Let's see where I'm at here. I chose this one because it gives a lot of character info and who they are, how they live. Features some really fun transitions. And this opening shot is Pat sleeping. He wakes up and we could see he is looking out of the van's side window and is filled with greenery. I've talked about this before about presenting a mystery visually. Like, where is he? What's outside? What is that? I mean, if you're looking at it, is it, I don't know if he's in a van or not, but then we cut to the reveal shot, the answer, which is the God's eye view of the van in the cornfield. It's crashed. And it's come to a stop. This is the first film Jeremy didn't shoot himself. He's actually a cinematographer, or he'd shot like 11 films leading up to Blue Ruin. This is the very first thing and the last thing he's worked as a DP on. So he had to hand it over to somebody else. It's also Sean Porter is the DP on this film. Also, he had always done indie films up until this movie. This was his first union film. So normally he was used to filming things himself, but he had to hand that over to somebody else, which is a little difficult for him. So then the others wake up, and Pat spots that Tiger fell asleep at the wheel. The van's still on, and he's too out of it to realize what he's done, and the gas tank is empty, and the engine is still on, and many have died. It may be dead, and they ran out of gas because of his negligence. And what this does is show that Tiger is irresponsible and a goof. And there's even another scene that comes up in a minute that supports that. They climb out of the van, and Sam finds a skating rink nearby on her phone.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's where they're in the back. Yeah. So she's looking at her phone. She finds a skating rink. Another question, because why a skating rink? What's the skating rink got to do with them being out of gas? And then they answer it, or she says, I'll come with you. And then they get on the bike. Anton pulls a bike out, and they get on the bike, and it cuts to them riding on the bike with that shot we love. Right in there. Sam is busy on her phone, taking photos of the countryside. One of the things that's really important about, I'll get to that in a minute. Then we cut to a low-angle shot of the rink in the parking lot, rack focus to the bike being tossed down and them running to the ditch. And Sam pulls out a gas tank and a hose. So now we know what they're up to. They're actually sneaking around. And then it goes to them sneaking up to 2 cars, and they're siphoning gas because they don't have any money. And now we know they're broke, and they're doing whatever they can to get by. They're barely getting by. Every penny matters. And so we're seeing a lot of that through this about their finances. And it also feels that it's evident that it feels like Pat and Sam are closer than they are to the others. And perhaps they're the assertive, take care of business members of the group. And then you cut to a dolly shot through the corn as the guys are pushing the van to get it started. She's in there. And then you have like a little montage of some shots. And then you have this helicopter shot from above of the forest and the ocean. And he said this is his shining shot. I've noticed, myself included, like a lot of horror filmmakers of the day, Gen X millennials are really huge Shining fans. You can find Shining homages in a whole lot of modern horror films, from Eggers and Astor and Peele and Flanagan and all that. And this whole opening, one of the big things about this opening scene is Jeremy used as much wide shots and open, fresh air stuff because the movie becomes extremely claustrophobic for most of the film. So it was important for him for the beginning to kind of show how free their life is. They're out in the free, open spaces. They live, and then by once they get into the venue, they're stuck in this little room with no freedom, and it's like a prison. And there's a lot of that about being stuck. Macon Blair makes the choice to basically betray because he doesn't want to go to jail. He says, "I don't want to go to jail," and then he escapes to the woods and things like that. And then it cuts to a shot that starts as a close up of Tad, and he's on his phone talking to Maybe, and the shot turns to a wide as Tad walks up to meet them at their van as it's coming up the road. Yeah, that's one where he's walking away right there. But there's another one where he walks up to the van. Yeah.
Okay.
This is all one shot. It starts with him sitting on the curb, looking at his phone, texting, and then he gets up and meets them at the van. The whole shot follows him there. And then he's talking to them, and he hands Sam his house keys and tells, so we're letting us know that they're going to crash at his place. So they have no money for a hotel. He's booking them, but he doesn't have money to book the talent in a hotel. So we're dealing with a lot of like grassroots for the arts people, really, because that's how artists live a lot. They just squat in people's houses or sleep on a couch, sleep in the van. So then he walks off to work, and they go inside, and then we see inside Tad's apartment, and they're looking around, and we're learning about who this guy is. We see a drafting board, so we realize he's an artist, and they mention his art, and at least he can draw, or at least he's a good artist. And the Tiger is looking at the record collection, say, hey, this guy's legit, because he's got a good punk collection. He doesn't just have the Clash and Sex Pistols. He's got, all these different obscure bands, in there. So he's like, hey, this guy's legit. And then she throws him some beers and questions Reese using the phone. I think in this opening scene, what we see is, like, we're talking about character. Right here in this shot, Pat is between Reese and Sam. And I kind of feel like these two probably butt heads, and he may be the one that's in between that kind of keeps the peace kind of thing. But he also like decides to leave at this point. When they start kind of riffing, he goes, I'm going to bed. And he leaves. And again, our goof, Tiger, even though the guy just said, I'm going to bed, he's going to turn a punk album on full blast, which he does next. And then it cuts to the record player in the morning. Yeah. And it's done, the record player. So once again, Tad has left something running unattended. And Pat gets up and fixes it, pulls it over, puts the needle down, turns it off. And then he goes in and cleans up the beer cans. Like, this shows that Pat is the responsible, respectable guy of the group. He's cleaning up their mess. This is somebody else's place, But the first thing he does is clean up. And so we got this shot. And then we're going to see the guy cross in the window back there. And he goes to meet him. It's really important that you see that the shots that we see of Anton are just his hands and out of focus, because here's a great transition of him looking at this guy. And a quick note about this shot. Sometimes when you plan on shots, you get to the set and things don't work. And when they got to this set, the door hinges were on the opposite side of this door. So that door had to be changed and switched to the other side, because if you open the door the other way, you wouldn't be able to see Tad right there. So this was a union movie, which means you have to have the union do it. You can't do it yourself. So in the commentary, Jeremy's like, my production designer may or may not have snuck in on the weekend and reversed that door himself because the fees and the overtime that they would have to pay a union worker to do it were outrageous. So this was his first time working on a a union film, which I've had that. I've done conventions where I can't even take my stuff in or load it out because the union guy has to do it. So anyway, yeah, he stands there and he looks at him, and then Tad kind of smirks and says, "You the first one to fall asleep," which gives us this great reveal of, they drew Oliver's face with Sharpies, which is a setup too, because later on they draw on their faces with Sharpies to put on their camo for battle, which was an homage to Commando and Conan the Barbarian. It looks a lot like Conan the Barbarian drawings, but they use a Sharpie to do it. Also, Sharpies are kind of part of the punk scene. The straight edgers put the X's on their hands in the punk community. And a lot of people will make their own T-shirts. They'll write their favorite band on a T-shirt in Sharpie in the punk scene. So, and Jeremy knows this scene because he was in it. But what I think this so does it tells you who the characters are. Tiger is the irresponsible goof. Sam is the business person. Pat is the passive, rational, responsible mother type in some ways. He cleans up after their mess. And then the other guy's the impulsive, angry, hot fuse guy.
And this is God.
And that's God. But it's just a really great opening and establishes the characters and their roles. And, I chose it because of your opening is important. And this movie, all of that, I don't know how long that goes on, but that's a lot of information, a lot of stuff that happens, and it's all very well handled. And it's just a sign of a good filmmaker. If I watched this film, like, you could tell if you're watching a good filmmaker in the first 5-10 minutes of a movie. And I think the opening 5-10 minutes of this movie, you're in good hands. Because filmmaking is so good and visual storytelling is so good.
Yeah.
You know who these are, and you know what kind of life they're living and their relationships with each other. And, again, a lot of questions asked and then answered. But I just love that. And when I kept thinking about the movie, I was like, I just kind of want to do that opening scene. I want to break that down because I think it's a good example of good filmmaking.
I like the way this movie opens, really. And I also like the way it closes. It's overall, I was surprised how much I ended up liking this movie. And honestly, I did sit there when I was watching it. I'm like, I think Seth would love this movie. I did, and not because of what I said on the chat. I don't know if you even caught that about the white supremacy.
About the what?
White supremacy. I said I knew you'd love this movie because of the white. Yeah, I was joking.
Oh,
but,
yeah, no.
I really like. Part of me, I hate that I do this, where I put things off and don't say Assault on Precinct 13, please. But
Siege movie.
Yeah, that's what this is, really, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, and they start digging their way through the building. Like, what is the basement? In the basement, what is all that shit? I don't.
Heroin.
Was that what it was?
They're running a heroin operation.
Okay, I must have missed that.
That's why. Yeah, that's why Patrick Stewart's character wanted to handle things a specific way, because he didn't want to draw the cops to the club, which is basically the front for the operation.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that guy that plays, was it Worm, the lead singer of the other band. I love that scene where he walks up to him.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, "What was that second to last song you played?" And he says, "What it was?" He goes, "It's fucking hard, man. That's the one I did her to."
Yeah.
It's like so that it doesn't matter. Like, I did it to her. That's when I did it to her. It's just a creepy, again, really good dialogue and simple. That's one I did her to. Anton has that great line at the end where he looks at Patrick Stewart and said, "You were really scary at night."
Yeah. Anyway, so Thanks for breaking that scene down. I really do like the opening of this movie. It you know, I was talking about character development, and they accomplished a lot in maybe 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah,
And
because like you said, they're off the grid. No one, if they disappeared, there's no, not a lot of people who know where they're at or where they're going, and they don't have a lot of communication possibilities. They are desperate for money. They don't have anything, and they get stiffed at the Mexican bar. So at this point, and they're not. I mean, it could they've said that, like, oh, every show has Nazis. When we go, like, there's always a few skinheads at these places because it just
yeah,
comes with the scene.
yeah,
So they're not worried about the Nazis.
makes me think of American History X.
But when they get there and they see it's not just a couple Nazis. This is a movement's compound, basically.
Yeah.
Like, they're all Nazis here, and then they get the balls enough to play an anti-Nazi song to them to start the show.
That's pretty fucking hardcore, man.
Yeah.
But the best part was, like, when they started, I knew the song, of course. When they started, I was like, oh shit, and nothing really happened. So I was like, oh, I thought this is where things are gonna get started, and that's not how it went. That's the thing I liked about this movie. It was kind of unpredictable, where, like, there are a lot of movies where you can be like, oh, this is probably gonna happen next, and then, but this one wasn't like that. Like, again, I keep referring back to the part where Anton got his arm caught in the door. There's, I don't know. I really like this movie, though.
It's one of those, like, these are great setups because when you have a character stuck in a situation like that, you're like, how the fuck do you get out of this? Like,
Yeah.
I remember, like, one of my very favorites, and I don't watch the movie much and I don't, like, praise it or anything, but one of my favorite, how are they going to get out of this thing, is the ending of Hostel 2. Do you remember how that ended?
No, I like that movie. Is that the one with the kids?
It's
With
the
guns?
girl. It's the girls, and it shows the perspective of the two Americans who go over there to
Yeah.
kill. But it has the girls, and it's the girl from the Hitchhiker from the Texas Chainsaw remake.
Well, no, yeah,
Laura
but, like,
German. But
weren't there
she's
kids with, like, machine guns and shit, or was that the first one?
yeah, it was in the second one. I think they're in both of them.
Yeah,
But I think they are more prominent in the second one. But
Yeah.
the way she gets, because they lock it down and they've got her stuck, and she's got the scissors on the guy's balls.
Oh,
And
I don't remember that.
And she's got a gun on them, and they're all staring at her, and, like, there's dogs and all the bad guys there, and they got guns and everything. And she's got this guy. I don't know if she had a gun, but she's got scissors to the guy's balls, and she says, "I'm walking out of here." And you're like, well, how do you think you can walk out of here? He goes, "I'm buying my way out of here." Because earlier in the movie, we find out through dialogue that she inherited a bunch of money. She's fucking rich.
Right.
And that you didn't think of that. You don't think of that. Like, how is she going to get out of this? I'm buying my way out, because that's all these people really care about is money.
Yeah.
It's their business. So I'll just give them money and I'll just walk the fuck out of here. And then she cuts his balls off, and they're like, what should we do with him? Let him bleed, or let him bleed it out, or whatever. I thought it was a great ending, but it was one of those movies where, as that scene's happened, like, how the fuck is she going to get out of this? And I love movies like that. And that's how you feel, because they leave the green room, but then they end up back in there, back into the womb, because that failed. And they're losing numbers. And it's like, what do we do?
And oddly enough, that room is the only place that they are somewhat safe, By the way, do you like the Hostel movies?
I do. I mean, they're not. I haven't watched any of them in a long time. I don't even know if I saw the third one, but the
third
first
one's
two,
stupid.
The first two, I remember digging.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched those movies in a long time, because I don't know. I don't have, like, some drive to watch them again. Because
I know. I was curious, because when I was looking for movies to put on the schedule, Hostel came up. I was like, man, I'd like to talk about that, because I haven't seen it since.
I wouldn't mind, but I torture porn type films. I don't.
Oh, I know you. That's why I was
drive to go back to them, but I think Hostel was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And then the second one, I thought, he only made a second one because he knew he would. The only reason he made a sequel is because he had to come up with a story that mattered, that made sense or was interesting. And so to talk about the organization and how it works and show it from the perspective of two guys who go over there, which is really what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, so he didn't just make another movie for money. He had to find an interesting follow-up. He didn't just make the same movie. He actually told it from the other perspective. And
Edwidge Finnick is in the second one. Made me happy. Yeah,
not a big fan of that scene because that was a little too much.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the furthest. That scene was just hard to watch.
Was that Randy's sister also in that second one?
Yeah, the girl from Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, that's a weird ass movie too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like, I guess, the few Eli Roth movies I've seen, which would be Cabin Fever, the two Hostel movies, and of course Green Inferno. Am I missing one?
There's Knock Knock and Death Wish, and he made that one about it was kind of a kids movie, wasn't it? Jack Black, didn't he make that movie? The House of the Clocks on the Walls or something like that?
Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah.
That was pretty good.
I didn't see that one.
I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving because I thought that was I saw that trailer in Grindhouse. I thought that would be fun.
I like Eli. I like that he was in Inglourious Bastards too.
The Bear Jew.
Yeah, the Bear Jew. All right. I have no questions.
Questions.
Yeah. Well, watching this one, I
have a question.
Okay.
Desert Island Band. Who's your Desert Island Band?
Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit?
Seriously?
No.
Okay. Mine would be the Deftones, obviously.
The Deftones.
Yeah.
I'm garbage. Not really. The band.
I didn't have to ask you that.
Yeah. Jeremy's band. Jeremy answers it in the commentary. His is Black Sabbath.
Really?
The director. Yeah.
Okay.
But he talked about that whole question, because it keeps coming up. And it's a great ending, and he says, I think I know what my band is. She goes, tell somebody who gives a shit. But I like when they're about to go out and she says Madonna. Madonna and Slayer. and what maybe says Simon and Garfunkel, right? It's just fuck. It's like, fuck it, Simon and Garfunkel. That's
Simon and Garfunkel are great, though, in my opinion.
Well, he said, what he likes about that scene is, or that whole thing is that, and people pigeonhole people and they think that's what they are. Because just because you're in a punk band doesn't mean your favorite artists are punk band,
right?
And it's kind of like when Metallica, when everybody got really mad when Metallica did the switch, and but their heroes were Thin Lizzy and Bob Seger, and I mean they liked Motorhead and they liked other bands, but that doesn't mean that they cut their teeth on thrash. They kind of were responsible for that movement, So with other bands, I'm not gonna say they created thrash, they didn't, but they obviously grew up with bands that they liked outside of heavy metal because heavy metal really wasn't present when they were kids, outside of Judas Priest or whatever. So
not that kind of. They're part of the beginning of it anyway, of that kind of heavy metal.
Yeah. So when you listen to the Black Album and the music afterwards, it's definitely more of probably the rock that they grew up on, and maybe that's what they love. So, you can and he said, I was in a hardcore band and I knew a lot of punk rockers, and most of them, their favorite bands were not punk bands or hardcore bands.
Well, yeah, like the Deftones, for instance, their influence were Faith No More, The Cure, Depeche Mode, The Smiths, and Duran Duran. Those are bands that they don't sound anything like. Those are some of the the Human League. A lot of it's 80s stuff from back when when they were growing up, because they're about a little bit older than you are, I guess. They're all early 70s, I think, they were born. So, but you don't hear that in their music at all, and yeah, I get that. Being pigeonholed. I'm pigeonholed all the fucking time. not musically, but because I
Yeah.
like horror movies. Everybody think, oh, you should write a horror comic. I'm like, you should go fuck yourself.
Yeah, like horror, like the horror especially. Like people are like, wow, you like that? I'm like, dude, my top 10 movies are not horror movies. I
Yeah,
think
me too.
Jaws entered it recently, and that's the only horror movie in my
Yeah, but
top
Joe's,
10.
we've talked about that. That's one of those movies that is horror, but it's transcends horror. It's so much. It's like the perfect, in my opinion. I think it's the perfect movie. But
Yeah, but
just like Freddy's Dead. But whatever.
if you say you like horror, you like metal, there's this kind of stereotype that's what you are. You live that life because there's people who do that. I live horror. I live metal.
Oh yeah, there are for sure, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like not everybody who is into those genres lives, breathes, and drinks it. It's like I can listen to the Beatles and I can listen to Johnny Cash and I can listen to fucking Dead Kennedys. So.
Yeah, that's funny because the last girl I dated, she looked through my phone and was looking at the stuff, on my playlist, and she's like, "Wow, there's a lot of variety on here." I was like, "That's the spice of life, baby." Okay, let me ask you guys real fast. Off topic though, Seth, 3 favorite movies that aren't horror.
That aren't horror. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon 2.
Sequel, Seth.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Oh my god. I was expecting you to be able to rattle them off.
I was thinking about this recently, like trying to put together a list of like my favorite movies, period. But
right. So how many?
I always feel bad about where I place what where. But I guess my third one would probably be First Blood.
Nice. That's a great fucking movie. Underrated in my opinion. How many horror movies do you think are in your top 10? I'm guessing American Werewolf London's in there because you just.
Yeah, American Werewolf London.
I thought your favorite was In the Mouth of Madness. Isn't that your favorite horror movie?
Favorite Carpenter movie?
I thought it was his favorite horror movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. American Werewolf London. Yeah, that's my favorite horror movie. But yeah, In the Mouth of Madness is up there too for me. So
underrated.
And Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Elm Street is my favorite horror movie, but when I list my favorite movies of all times, Jaws is ahead of it. It's weird.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
that's my favorite horror movie, but I put Jaws on my favorite all-time movies higher.
I have to knock off First Blood. I would say my third favorite is probably Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
Yeah. All the Star Wars movies are in that top 10 for me too.
Yeah, for a long time I would just put Star Wars.
I did too. Yeah, people like which ones, and they're like, I said it's just all one thing. I can't like put them in order. Fuck that. I mean, I might say original trilogy is in my top 10.
Yeah, it's all one story.
That's all one.
That's how.
Yeah, like my top 3 movies.
There we go.
Are Taxi Driver, No Country for Old Men, and Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, really? I didn't know Reservoir Dogs was on there.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs was my favorite. Reservoir Dogs was my favorite movie for a long time, ever since I saw it in 93, 94. And then I just kept falling more and more in love with Taxi Driver, and that jumped up. And then I loved No Country immediately when I saw it.
Was fucking great.
And every time I would watch it, I'd just be more and more obsessed with it and read the book again and again. And I'm like, you know what? No Country is like my second favorite movie.
Have you seen that movie, Seth? No Country for Old Men?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that movie's fucking great. It is. It's not one of my favorites, but I respect it for how good it is. And Javier
I'm
Bardem,
a Coen Brothers fan.
Yeah, are you? Yeah. Javier Bardem is fucking outstanding in that movie. And so is Josh Brolin, really.
That whole cast is
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, I was gonna start rattling them off, but yeah.
Kelly McDonald.
Yeah, I love her. Yeah. I first saw her. I'm sure everybody's the same way in Trainspotting. From then on, I was like, I'll watch anything with her in it. I love her, and I pretty much have.
Did you see that one she did with Michael Keaton? I think he directed it, didn't he? Called he was a hitman.
I don't know if I saw that one. I don't know if I caught that one, which is weird because I love Keaton.
It was when he was kind of out, like he wasn't really doing a lot.
Before Birdman?
Yeah, it was before Birdman.
Let me look up Michael Keaton. I love that dude. By the way, watching Superman on the big screen made me fall in love with Chris Reeve all over again. I just want to say that. Like his smile, the way he acted, I was like, I forgot how great he is in that movie. Michael Keaton's only 5'9". So me, if I had to pick 3 movies non-horror, I think Jaws would be one of them. The Godfather would be one of them. I don't know what place it would be. I always say The Godfather is my favorite movie, but then I would say the original trilogy, which is a cop-out. If I had to choose one, I'd say A New Hope. So
New Hope's my favorite just because that's when I saw so much as a kid.
Yeah, it's
that's my second favorite though.
Well, A New Hope was so I have a weird relationship with Empire Strikes Back. I love it, of course. It's one of the greatest Star Wars movies. It's probably it's the fan favorite for sure. But like, I saw it so much. Like this was early HBO or whatever it was on. It was on all the time, and so it was Return of the Jedi, and then we had Return of the Jedi on tape and VHS tape, of course. By the way, who's going to see Return of the Jedi on the big screen?
I might try. It's a heavy month for movies, man. I don't know.
Come hell or high water, I'm going. But anyway,
I saw it in '83. Like I said, I'm good.
I saw it in '97. So, but no, well, Mike Reynolds hasn't seen. That's his favorite Star Wars movie. But Star Wars was the one I never saw. So
I think Jedi might be my favorite, even though I put Star Wars first. There's something because Jedi was my first in theater, and there's just something about Luke in the black Jedi gear with the saber and Jabba the Hutt and the Emperor and all that stuff. Like my favorite, I always used to say my favorite sequence in all movies is Vader versus Luke on the Death Star at the end.
It's a very
Return of the Jedi.
It's between the 3 actors in that scene. Well, James Earl Jones and David Prowse, but Palpatine is so fucking terrifying in that movie. And then Luke, the way he stands up for what he believes in. It's just there's so much. I should have mentioned Star Wars.
It's a horror show.
I know.
People, are you going to just talk about movies that are horror adjacent?
Well, I mean, Palpatine is one of the best villains of all time. I mean, legitimately. Anyway, okay, yeah. So Star Wars. I love Star Wars. So, oh shit. Let's do some
Sarlacc. It's pretty scary.
That I was gonna say that's one of my favorites is the whole sail barge scene. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
The Luke waving the lights. You never see the lightsaber be used like that. And Endor was a new fucking environment. I loved it. Anyway, let's do some final thoughts on Green Room. I'm just gonna say it surprised the hell out of me. Had me on the edge of my seat the entire time I was watching it. I hate that Anton Yelchin's gone. He's such a great actor. If you haven't seen Odd Thomas, check out Odd Thomas. We're going to do a show on that. It's one of Seth's favorites, I think, sometime in the next few months. But yeah, and Imogen Poots, I am smitten with her. She's so pretty, and she's a good actress. So, Nate, what kind of final thoughts you have on this one?
Well, I just absolutely love this movie in Blue Ruin. I cannot preach enough of, and Murder Party is a really fun movie, and I pointed out like they homaged it Scream 6. The
guys wearing the armor,
the guys dressed like him, and the main character in the movie. But I just think Jeremy's a really strong filmmaker, and I can't remember what the new movie he's doing. It's in post-production, but I'm really excited to see that. He also, I think the last thing he did was he did some episodes of True Detective, the 3rd season. Was a director on that, the one with Ali. But I just think these are 2 of the very best thrillers of the century. I very grounded in reality. interesting. Rebel Ridge. Yeah, I think if these two guys skipped Green Room for a while and they fucking loved it. So if you haven't seen Green Room, I haven't run anybody who doesn't like this movie, honestly.
Yeah.
And I haven't run anybody who didn't like Blue Ruin. So I'm sure there's people out there. There's always somebody up, but I personally have never seen him. I go, oh, that movie's a piece of shit. Never have seen that.
When I put it up on the Horror Syndicate Facebook page, asking what people thought of it, there's the 5-star review, of course. That we got it's not really a horror movie.
Yeah, you get that.
I'm like, okay,
not really a horror movie.
Explain yourself. It's a horror movie. Dude, if you're on the edge of your seat, you're white knuckling it throughout the whole movie. It's a horror movie, I think.
It's funny how you take the similar plot, and if the Nazis were zombies, it's a horror movie. If the Nazis were monsters or cannibals or something, it's a horror movie. But because they're a hateful, racist cult, it's not a horror movie. But it's pretty goddamn terrifying and scary, and it's intense, and those dogs might as well be monsters, and those Nazis might as well be slashers, and the Hills Have Eyes characters. It's the same plot, same tension, same thing. So I think it totally walks the horror line. It is a thriller by heart, but thrillers and horror are married.
Well, it is labeled as a horror movie too, so we have proof.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I forgot to do the community score, so I'm doing that right now. It got an 82%. No, hold on. Yeah, 82% by our followers. Not too bad. 279 out of 551 were 5-star ratings, so which I think it deserves that. Seth, my man, give me some final thoughts.
Yeah, so this one, I've been told before by quite a few people to watch it, and I'm like, yeah, I will, and then I forget about it.
See, now you know how I am with fucking Assault on Precinct 13.
No, see, there's a difference there, sir. You have no fucking excuse. I bought that movie for you.
I know. It's right there, actually.
It's a good siege movie. I think if you like The Green Room, you'll like that.
Kent's got a great John Carpenter score.
Absolutely.
I'm so one of the best. The remake first.
Dun, dun, dun.
No. Anyway, go ahead with your final thoughts.
Yeah. So, but I do wish that I saw this sooner. I think it's got a good cast. It's well directed, and I think it's got I think it had a really sharp script to it. There was a lot of, it was just very, very well crafted as a horror thriller, and it was, like you said earlier, Ray. You can't really call it fun, but I had a good time watching it.
Yeah. It kept you guessing.
And and I'm looking forward to checking out his other two movies, because I was listening to a couple of videos earlier today at work, and a couple other people mentioned those two other movies, Blue Ruin and Murder Party, and so I wrote them down. So I do plan on checking them out. But good film from a good filmmaker.
Yeah, and let's take a look at this one more time, just because I like it. I don't know why. I like that they have the wherewithal to bring a bike with them, because they know that something like that's
run out of gas. Yeah.
So next week we are going to talk about have a spoiler show on Evil Dead Rise. I believe I'm seeing it this weekend. I hope you guys are too. Otherwise, it's going to be me talking to myself. And then, I forgot to put it on there again. 2 weeks from then, in 3 weeks, we'll be doing The Devil's Candy, which is another one Nate's been talking about for a long time, which is streaming on Tubi right now. Also, anybody who wants to check out Blue Ruin or Murder Party, they're streaming on multiple platforms if you want to check them out, including Tubi and YouTube for free and Vudu for free. And then Green Room is on HBO Max. So, and on Friday, Seth and I are starting. We finished our Friday the 13th rankings, and now we're going to start with the Elm Street movies. God is going to be with us. So, anything else you want to say before we go? How excited are you about Evil Dead Rise?
I'm pretty excited, but also very apprehensive because it looks like a ride, and in a very unpleasant ride at that. It just looks like a violent, gory, attacking movie. And from what I hear, it is like the whole movie's like doesn't waste any time getting to it. Apparently, so
good. Neither did the 2013 movie. That's apparently underrated. I fucking love that movie. I'm thinking about going at 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday to see it. So that way maybe I won't be scared. No. Anyway, Seth, are you excited?
Oh, very.
Yeah. All right. Well, no spoilers if you see it before me. Okay. All right. Next week, Evil Dead. So make sure you check it out. It will be a spoiler show. And for Nate and Seth, we will see you next week. And hey, watch some horror movies, for God's sakes.
Such sights to show you.
Hell yeah.